So after pressure washing the deck like you saw in the previous video, or make sure to check that out if you haven't seen it yet, we let it dry for about 48 to 72 hours and make sure there was not going to be raining for at least 24 hours. And then we sanded the deck, which is what I'm doing right now. First, I used a block sander and then I used my actual sander to make sure to smooth out anything. As you can see, it took a lot of time to sand, especially between the railing, because it's just a lot of tedious work. So if you can avoid damaging the wood when you're pressure washing it, you probably can just skip this step, or it won't take you as long, because we had a lot of fuzzies that I needed to make sure to take care of. So after using the block sander, it's actually, instead of the sandpaper, it's a sand in the form of a block that actually made it a lot easier. I will link it for you all. It's a lot easier than sandpaper. So now I'm using my rotary sander. The only reason I didn't use it for the entire thing is because it would not fit between the railing. But if I could have, I would have used my rotary sander for the entire thing. So after sanding it, I just used my leaf blower to blow all of the sand dust that was left over. And then I made sure to tape everything because the floor is going to be a different color. So if your entire deck is going to be the same color, you can skip this step. You don't need to tape and use any painter's tape. So the painter's tape has been applied over here and we're about to start painting. I actually haven't decided if I want to paint this pole white or not, so that's why I put the tape there and we'll see. So all the rails are going to be white and then the floor is going to be a gray, but I might make the pole, I'm deciding between black or maybe gray like the floor. We'll see. I'll probably do that last until I can decide. So I decided to work by section because I want to get some painting done today. So what I did, as you can see, I just sanded all over here to make sure it's all smooth on the inside, and I applied painter's tape. I'm going to paint this section. After that, I'm going to move on to the section across here. We need to sand this as well, so I can paint that and then do this section, and then probably we'll do the floors another day. As you can see, I seem to remove all those things from the deck. So now time to actually start painting. So for the railing, I would recommend a small roller and a brush to get in between the parts where the roller cannot. I started using with the brush at first, but it was a lot easier just using mostly the roller because you get a smooth finish, and the brush for anything that the roller cannot, any space the roller cannot fit in. Like I mentioned earlier, I sanded one section and started painting it. Ideally, you would want to have the entire thing sanding and then paint, but because we kept getting rain and I worked a lot, I wanted to get some painting done. So I sanded one section, started painting it, and after that I ended up moving to a different section. I sanded it as well and then started painting it as well, which you will see. The instructions say you only need 2 coats, but I think because it's white, I end up having to do 3 coats, because even with the 2 coats, you can kind of still see through it. So we did 3 coats. So hopefully with the gray, we only need 2 coats. So we are finally about to start on the floor of the deck today. First, I'm going to do some sanding. That's what this pole is there for. And I'm also going to use my sander to see which one is better. And so ideally you would want to have everything sanded and then paint, but because we kept getting a lot of rain, so whenever we had a sunny day, I would sand a part and paint it and then go on the opposite side just to make sure there were no sand dust kind of flying everywhere, and then sand the other side and paint, just so that we were able to start with the painting. So I ended up using the pole because I didn't want to have to get on the floor with my sander, but I didn't like the pole. It was a lot harder to do, so I ended up just using my sander and just getting on the floor. That was a lot easier than doing with the pole. While pressure washing, we ended up getting a little bit too close a couple of the times, so it ended up creating some fuzzies on the wood, and part of the wood got damaged. So it's very important that you sand all that down to make sure that you don't get the paint peeling off. So that's what I'm doing right now, just kind of catching all the spots that we were too rough with the pressure washer, to make sure all that is smoothed out. Next, you want to make sure that you look through the floor and hammer in any nails that are sticking out before you start the painting process. And if you need to, you can replace some nails with screws. We ended up just keeping the nails. Next, I just use my leaf blower to kind of blow all the sawdust off. You can just use a broom if you don't have one. So I went ahead and put the painter's tape all around to protect the borders. And now we're finally about to start painting the floor. So the color actually turned out a lot lighter than I thought. I love the color, but the one thing I was worried about being too light on the floor because we have dogs. But I ended up deciding to just keep that color. So I want to show you all really quick what I'm using. I have a paintbrush, so I can do in between, and I have this, I forget what it's called, but it's for the floor. It's like to finish the floor with stains or paint. I will link the exact one, and I just have a pole that I pretty much use for everything. That's the one that I use for the sanding paper, and we're about to get started. And I almost forgot to mention, I also have a roller in case we need it. So first I started off with the brush, paintbrush, painting in between the planks, and then I figured I would use the stain thing that I got. But as you will see, after using it for a while, I did not like it. It made it so much harder to apply, so I ended up switching to a roller, as you're going to see in the next couple of clips. So this was definitely a learning process. I did a lot of research before buying material, the tools that I was going to use, but there were things that I did not like that staining thing that you see I'm about to use. There was a video, it had great reviews, the person loved it, but I found it so much harder to apply. I felt like I had to really work hard. I had to really put my back into it for it to work. And the roller, once I started using roller, it just easily glided through it. So I felt like I pretty much wasted my money on this. So I will link it in case you all want to try it, but I was not a fan of it, and it was like $10. So this is with the roller. As you can see, it's a lot easier. It glided more easily. I didn't have to put as much work into it. I just added to the same pole and that I was using with the other staining thing. So the first coat took me over 4 hours to complete. It took a lot of time painting in between the planks. That's what took the longest. The second coat took me less than an hour. So I finally decided on a color for the pole. So now I'm covering the floor and then we're sanding the poles. Ideally, you want to do everything at the top, like the rails and the poles, and then doing the floor last, so you wouldn't have to deal with covering the floor. But honestly, I was just being very impatient and I wanted to start the floors already, and with the rain and all that. But life would have been so much easier if I had just finished the railing and the poles and then did the floor at the very last, because then I wouldn't have to deal with covering everything like I'm doing right now. So we're about to do some more painting today. We're gonna paint all these poles. These 3 poles, we're gonna do it a dark charcoal gray. So this was a tool that I found in order to be able to get all the tight places between the railings. So as you can see, you can fit right over here, and it was so easy to do. I was also able to easily get between the pole and the draining pipe, so I did not have to unscrew it. We have the floors painted, we have all the railings up here painted, and these poles are painted. So now all we have left are the stairs. So this is dedication out here at night doing some painting. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe for more videos on home decor, makeovers, and organization. There will be a part 3 with the entire deck decorated, so make sure you subscribe for that.